Hello everyone, I am Jonathan Little. I'm here today with another fun hand for PokerNews.com. I want to thank you all for being here today. This time in a $3,500 buy-in tournament, we have Ace King of Spades in the hijack seat. I know one of the more common questions I get asked is, why don't you show the hands where you play bad cards? And the answer is, I don't play a whole lot of bad cards. The only times you should be loosening your range significantly are when you're in the blinds or when you're on the button. And that's usually only when we're playing all late position against late position. If you're in early position, you have to be very tight. And if you're in middle position, you also have to be kind of tight. Don't be insane. Being insane will just lose you a lot of money. Fancy play syndrome is the bane of many mid-stakes players' existence. They can't help themselves. They think, oh man, I have the ace 7. I'm going to try to do it this time. I'm going to represent aces. But no, you're not representing aces. You're just representing a wide range full of garbage. Don't do that. Anyway, here we have ace king suited. This is a good hand. We raise it up to 1,100. A good loose aggressive kid makes it 2,800. So let's suppose they folded back around to me. I don't think that's what happens this time, but say they did fold back around to me. What would I do? I think I would usually just go ahead and put in the 4-bet to about 7,000. I could also consider jamming all in, but that's a bit large of a jam. Typically, the biggest you can shove all in for is about 10 times your opponent's bet, which is 2,800. So an all in for 28,000 or less would be reasonable. And that could be fine. Ace King suited is a really good hand, though. So it may make more sense to put this in my bluffing range. Or put this in a range that contains more bluffs. Like, say I did have Ace 10 offsuit and decided I did not want to shove it, wanted to use it as a 4-bet and then fold to a shove. That could be reasonable. I could also do it maybe like ace 5 suited. That seems fine. Alternatively, you could just shove everything. I don't think that's actually that bad, especially if the opponent is loose and aggressive, meaning he may be 3-betting me more often than he should. However, if he's good, he's probably just playing reasonably strong ranges. If he's playing reasonably strong ranges, there's not a whole lot you can do about it besides just playing well yourself. So I would either make it 7,000 here or shove, one of the two, depending on how I expected the opponent to react. So now, remember, raise to 1,100, re-raise to 2,800, all in for 18,000. So now the question is, should we continue? Obviously, if we continue for any amount, we're essentially playing for all the money. In this situation, it does not matter if we call or re-raise, because the good loose aggressive kid is only going to call 18,000 if he's putting in his 24,000 stack. He's not doing anything insane like calling 18,000 then folding on the flop for 5,000 more. It's not happening. Get that out of your head. It'd be a little bit different if instead we were playing something like 38,000 deep. Then it may make sense to call, to let the loose aggressive player call with all sorts of stuff like ace queen and ace jack and king queen. But again, the player's good, so he's not going to do this. No one's putting in 45 big blinds preflop with ace jack offsuit or king queen, right? It's just not happening. So anyway, in this scenario, should we call or should we fold? Well, what do we think the ranges are that we are looking at? The good loose aggressive kid could certainly have plenty of bluffs, and he may even be value betting weaker hands, so that isn't such a big deal. We certainly have lots of equity with our ace king suited if we do get called in both spots anyway. This player, though, must have something pretty good. You're not going to see too many cold 4-bet all-ins, but it's actually not such a bad spot. Like, if he thinks I am playing loose and aggressive, and we have this other player who's playing loose and aggressive, well, for 45 big blinds, he should actually have a pretty good amount of fold equity. So this player in seat 9 could be shoving very wide. However, he may just be a nit, right? If he's a nit, he's only going to be shoving with aces and kings and queens and maybe ace king, in which case now we at least need to consider folding. But even then, it's hard to know exactly how tight someone is because most people are not playing only aces, kings, queens, and ace king. It's hard to be that nitty. And the thing is, you can't really be much tighter than that. But you can be a whole lot more loose, right? So in that scenario, you want to run your equity against the tightest range any reasonable human is going to have, which in this case, we have probably 40-ish% equity. So that's worst case, we're 40%. What is the best case? Well, say this guy is just losing his mind and jamming ace 5 suited or ace jack offsuit or something like that. Now we're in amazing shape. We have 65 or 70% equity, at least against those hands, not against his range. Against his range, we have something like 55 or 58% equity. And clearly folding for when you have 58% equity, heads up, is a big disaster. Some people will say, yeah, but I don't want to quote unquote flip for my tournament life. You have to understand we're getting pot odds, right? There's already 1,000 plus 2,800 in the pot. This guy for 2,800, by the way, is going to be folding a large amount of the time. So it's almost like he's not here. So right there, we have to play a pot that's going to have about 40,000 chips in it, but we only have to put in 16 or 17, right? So we need to win less than 50% of the time. So if you knew you had 50% equity, you should be happy to get in because you need to win 46% or whatever it is, and you're actually going to win 50. It's pretty good, right? A lot of people think that's not a big enough edge. In their mind, they say, oh, I think I can find a better spot. But you have to understand, if you are constantly folding out situations where you have an edge, looking for a better spot, what you're doing is you're giving all of those little bits of equity to the loose and aggressive players. This is why loose aggressive players tend to win tournaments, and tight aggressive players have a much more difficult time. They cash a decent amount because they hang out and they survive. And, hanging out and surviving is relevant, but at the same time, you need to try to build chips. And if you are constantly giving, like right here, if I fold, I'm giving something like 1,000 or 2,000 chips to this player in seat 9. So we're just like handing him that equity in exchange for not having to flip. Flipping is not so bad. You need to win some hands to win tournaments. And in this spot, I'm just going to be all in virtually every time. The only way I could ever fold in this spot is if I just knew this guy was really tight. Or if the 3-better was a much tighter player, then it may make sense, but that was not the case in this hand. So we do jam, and sometimes this good lag is going to call us too when he has aces, kings, queens, and ace-king. He's probably not going to fold those, just like I'm not going to fold those. But even then, we have ace-king suited, so it's fine. We have to get it in. This is one of these tournament spots where it's somewhat unavoidable. We get it all in against queens and ace-king, and, having those spades are nice sometimes. We end up making a flush, and just like that, we have a whole boatload of chips. I actually remember this tournament. I forget exactly how it ends, but I'm pretty sure I got quite unlucky towards the end. I think I had kings against ace-jack for a lot of chips to bust in something like 15th place. So whenever you do get lucky and get a whole pile of chips, you always want to make sure you do something with them. I think what happens to a lot of not-so-good players is they get lucky, they get a lot of chips, and then they just still don't win, or even make a deep run, right? They don't even cash because they figure out a way to give it back. Whenever you do get a hold of a lot of chips, realize these are not chips that you can now lose doing stupid things or chips to call all-ins to try to bust players. These are chips to use to apply pressure intelligently and just continue playing well. The adjustments you should make when you have a lot of chips are usually not that drastic. Just realize, though, that whenever you have a bunch of chips, you get to lose 3 or 4 big pots, whereas everybody else gets to lose 1. And that right there is going to give you a significant edge going forward because it's kind of hard to lose 4 big pots in a row, whereas it's really, really easy to lose 1, right? So that's going to be it for this hand today for PokerNews.com. Thanks again for being here. If you like these videos, let the people at Poker News know. Have fun, good luck in your games, and I'll talk to you next week.